All right, call the meeting to order. Roll call shows we got 4 of our counselors. We're missing Counselor Gary. Open forum.
Yeah. Where's Gary?
Unavailable.
Michael is unavailable for tonight. So, open forum. Anybody receive any correspondences to share? Anything? Going once, going twice? Closing the open forum, moving on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda has a typical 3 items and a 4th item, which is a hiring memo for the golf course, which is for Paulina Backstrom as a seasonal clubhouse attendant. So, unless someone would like to pull something for discussion, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I would make that motion.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda carries. Moving right on to the Planning Commission report with Resolution 22-15 for the Dairy Queen's use. So this is for an illuminated sign on their property.
You want me to go over it?
Yep, go for it.
Okay. I had to run that meeting too. So the gist of it, actually, I thought it was a really good discussion. So the Dairy Queen is remodeling to meet the kind of corporate standard, I guess, that Dairy Queen puts on its franchises, or I think that would be the right term. And within that, there was a few things. There's a conditional use requirement for internally lit signs. And really, if you, I guess I didn't even notice, did we have the drawings? Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
So in there, if you guys look at it, it's almost the last page.
Yep.
Mostly in the drawings, there is that black eyebrow that runs along, the black
Children.
Under
on
the
the
chill,
grill and
under
chill.
the chill and grill.
So in that black eyebrow, which sticks out a couple feet from the building, there is that line that you see. So it's that line is basically an LED strip,
Okay.
and that is considered an internally illuminated sign.
Okay.
Also in the conversation, so we talked about that, and I think we had asked, like, if you could make this controllable, like put a dimmer on it, because, we asked what the lumens count was, and not sure I understood.
It seemed bright.
It seemed bright, although
Seems-
the following day actually was going to cross-country meet and drove past one that had been remodeled and had the same detail, and it was like you couldn't even really notice it.
That's
So,
good.
So anyways, the other conversation that we had that Seth actually brought up was, we asked if like grill and chill was internally illuminated. He said it was not, and also the DQ sign. And so the way they have it now is like a kind of a down light, like an arm that sticks out, and the light casts down at the building. So he said he planned on reusing that to illuminate the DQ portion of the sign, and then, but in relation to the eyebrow that goes across there is soffit lighting that shines down,
Yeah.
but it also
And up.
so those lights also shine up. And so we had conversation about, we don't have any language about dark sky.
I know, we should though.
But he was actually, so the way we wrote the resolution was, he was willing to like put half as many of the bulbs in the uplights, and also the lights that he has for the uplights are directional, so it's not like it's just a spotlight shining up. You can, they're
capped on one
eyeballs,
side,
so
yeah.
he can point and adjust. And so the way we worded the language after a couple go-arounds was that it's a 1 year basically conditional use permit, right? Would be the right way to say it. That allows us to take a look at it once everything's installed, and he was willing to
Smart.
he was willing to work with us on what we thought if we got feedback from folks in the community. Well, I mean, because I brought up, I know, like, across the street, there was a handful of signs that went up at one point. And of course, it happened to be on the street that I lived on, so when you'd come down that hill, that uplight that was on the sign was like, I mean, it was like driving into high beams on an 18-wheeler, like it was so bright. And that, I think, got adjusted and fixed, and so it's just really, we wanted to approve the variance request, or the conditional use permit, excuse me, with the understanding that we could have the dialogue, so that's.
So it's not like so expensive that if he had to make changes, it'd be like, oh.
No, well, that was how, we talked about that, because we didn't want him to put things in, but he said that the units themselves for the up-down, which I don't understand them quite, if it's an actual roof, but that it's a single unit, does both up and down, but the bulbs are interchangeable, so he could pop, you know, if he figured there would be 5 uplights, I think, on the 3rd Avenue West, right? That's 3rd?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's, like 5 uplights
Second.
potentially there?
Second.
It is second, okay.
Yeah.
On the one-way, right? He said that, you know, we could eliminate 2 of those potentially if it seemed like it did. And we asked him also, like, well, what does corporate offices say if we said no? And he said, well, then I guess we just have to, we could, if you said no, we'd go and say this is what they're saying, and
Right.
it'd be some other, but so we were trying to just work with him in that, and
Is this something that they turn off once it's closed at night, or is this lighting they
That's a good
expect to
question.
have on all the time?
that's a good question. I don't think we asked that question.
No, and he talked about it being designed to bring awareness to when they're operating. But he
Especially
didn't
in-
say they're not going to have them on when they're not operating.
Yeah,
I mean, we'll ask him about that.
Yeah, because
yeah, that's a good question.
sure in a lot of suburbia lands, they don't care if the lights are on, and they kind of want it anyways to draw attention if they're closed, but here I would think we would want to.
Yeah.
And that was, sorry, go ahead.
No, is it, see that over toward the, like, is that like the drive, or that side door?
Yep.
It says the Valence, anyways. Is that an overhead light, or is this thing like light up?
That doesn't light up. So any other lighting that's on there besides the LED strip that's in and then the up-down lights that are in this eyebrow, everything else would be lit via like the, you know, like the gooseneck style, like barn kind of lights that would shine back at the building like that.
Okay.
So here's what we talked about in terms of what our zoning says about lighting right now.
Yeah.
It says, all sources of artificial light shall be so fixed, directed, designed, or sized that the sum total of their illumination will not increase the level of illumination on any nearby residential property by more than 1/10 of a foot candle in or within 25 feet of a dwelling, or 1/2 of a foot candle in any other part of the property. That's the one where we actually have something measurable. And then we also have, any lights used for exterior illumination shall direct light away from adjoining property, which potentially you could make the argument that straight up is away. But then next it says glare, whether direct or reflected, such as from floodlights, spotlights, or high temperature processing, and as differentiated from general illumination, shall not be visible beyond the limits of the property, which frankly isn't true of any property in town.
Or any light.
So we talked about there is some language in our zoning ordinance that we could enforce lighting issues with, but we're not really doing it, and I don't think we have the technical capacity to do it either. If we want to get serious about regulating lighting, that we need to do a wholesale rewrite of our lighting regulations.
Because under the way that's written, I mean, if you were standing on the opposite side of the street of Dairy Queen, you shouldn't be able to see the light.
Not the light, but the glare.
Glare.
And
Yeah.
even that, it's clear that that's not happening, right? I mean, you can see the glare from a lot of properties.
Right.
If we're interested in taking a look at some point, just taking a look at what the model ordinances for lighting are through Dark Sky, in Dark Sky International, they have it all written up. It's a document that we can download.
It's extensive.
It's extensive.
We
But you
have
don't
looked
have
at
to
it.
do them all in order to get the classification. So you have to meet a certain standard, and you can kind of pick and choose from those different things to meet your specific community's needs.
Yeah,
And
so at
your
least there's
current
something to start
illumination.
from.
There's something to start
If
from.
you have to create it yourself.
Which would be a great project for the planning commission, but they're going to focus on housing, in particular, maybe utilities for new housing in the
about
near-term future, it's a zoning question. He could definitely help, but there needs to be some policy work done by a board to really think
I would
about
agree
that
with that.
issue. And we likely will have openings on the planning commission in the future for any of you who are not in the room that might want to work on lighting, I'm just saying.
I just feel bad if someone's going to all this work right now to improve their building like this, which is great. I don't want to set them up, for costs that
Yeah.
we
He
sometimes
wasn't
are unhappy with.
Yes.
Yeah,
We-
that's all.
We addressed that.
The corporate thing
He said
actually,
it wasn't a big deal. He said it was a matter of removing light bulbs.
Yeah,
Yep.
that would be it then, and he'd be okay.
yep,
Yeah.
and that's probably one of the better protections that a corporate structure like that gives you, is that, like, the expectations are put into place so that they can have uniformity, and then any kind of limitations that are put on that design are just things that are adjusted instead of things that, he's not gonna be putting a ton more money to get that done in a certain way, even if we say he can't.
Yeah.
So anyway. So conditional use permit, as you recommend, or as you explained there, that was seen with a 3-0 in favor of from the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I appreciate all of the thought that went into that, especially coming up with the 12-month trial period, more or less, to see how that lighting actually exists in real life. I would love to see something like that be more standard in how we handle, lighting in particular. It just seems like a good move, especially if we're going to get more sensitive about light pollution and things like that.
Well, considering our really only effective way of regulating it is see how bright it is and decide if we like it or not, I don't think we have any choice right now.
For sure.
But we need to be more capable than that, I think, if we want to be serious about lighting.
Definitely. Well, plus now he has a broader range of LED bulbs he could pick too.
For
There
sure.
wouldn't have to be a super cold,
Yeah.
harsh light anymore. There are
Right.
more options that way too when they make good choices.
And that certainly is one of the options that I've seen that written into like a Dark Sky International ordinance or model policy, is that you don't allow anything above a certain Kelvin, just because you want to keep those lower Kelvin, warmer bulbs, which are more readily available now.
When right now, internally illuminated sign is the only way we even entered into this conversation. If he didn't have that,
LEDs.
or if we decided that wasn't a sign, then he could have installed those lights, and
Whatever.
there wouldn't have even been a conversation with us.
Sure.
Chris brought up, when he saw the packet, that internally illuminated signage, he didn't expect to be a conditional use. It typically isn't. It's typically a variance or something else that's required for it. So
But the way our ordinance is written,
it's a
it's a
conditional
conditional
use.
use.
But we might be the exception there. So again, there could be a need for us to maybe take a more holistic look at lighting regulation.
Is there any functional difference between a conditional use and a variance, Chris? Or is that something that we're, logistically we don't really have to worry about, or is it's kind of a should instead of a have to?
It's a different set of criteria that are being applied in terms of how to get a variance. And, a variance is basically, you have a particular requirement in your zoning, and so this is, and this requirement applies to everybody else, and therefore, you're gonna allow this differentiation from the zoning through a variance. Versus a conditional use permit, which is really, is intended to be an actual use of the property, like it's going to be used for,
Makes sense.
some specific, use, not lighting. And so it's an odd setup, but I mean, it is what your code says related to it, and, what the planning commission put together really is what would be more likely described as an interim use permit, because they put a limitation on the duration of this particular conditional use permit, but your code doesn't really provide for that. So, I mean, you're working within the confines of your code, which is kind of strange, and obviously trying to assist a business related to a lighting issue. So it's an odd set of circumstances.
Gotcha.
But I think it's going to work this time.
Now, does he get those Simpla credit deals with changing lights?
I'm sure Nancy's talked to him, but I'll ask. She was just here today. She was even here. Yeah. Did big check signings, took some pictures for a couple of local businesses.
Nice,
Yeah.
good deal.
Wow.
I love big check signing. I mean, particularly when I don't have to be in the
Like when
picture.
you win the lottery?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
We owned one.
Oh.
Get a rebate, we'll take your picture.
Bring that down to the credit union and slide it through the little window.
Yeah.
James,
I had a,
auto teller.
I had a meeting with Soil and Water and offered to put his name on it and write $10 million and take his picture, because that'd be fun.
Of course.
Who
All right,
wants
so
to?
we've got Resolution 22-15 for this one. Any further discussion on this resolution?
You want me to make a motion?
If you want to, you can.
I'd make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-15.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second?
Motion and a second, any further discussion? Just like to thank the Planning and Zoning Commission for doing really thoughtful work on this one. I think that's going to serve us well in the coming year as we assess this.
Oh my God, no, the fire pit isn't going away, is it?
No, I don't think so.
That's always
I hope they don't take down that little pergola that they've got on the backside too.
I
That's
doubt
pretty
it,
nice.
that's pretty new.
That's pretty new, and it's pretty nice. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. Wonderful. So that is good. Be good to see that move through. Next item on the agenda, we have liquor license renewals. So in our packet, we have a list of a number of businesses. These have not changed dramatically from in the past. Do we have any last minute additions?
I thought there was one more that hadn't come in yet, but nothing has come in, so we'll cover it at the next meeting if there is.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay. We haven't got
Um,
anything from up the hill.
Well, that's the one I was wondering about.
You approved that at your previous meeting.
Okay.
The liquor
Oh, that's
license?
right.
Yeah,
We did.
Oh, maybe that's why I was in my
Yep.
head.
yeah.
We approved that.
Okay, so that's why it's not on this list. Got it.
The scheduling issue with that was, we don't have a partial liquor license. So if you want a liquor license for the last 2 weeks of September, it's $2,500.
Oh.
So our conversation was, maybe it's best to just schedule that one to start October 1st.
Sure.
That's what it will. And it'll be on the regular rotation with the rest of them.
Okay.
Sounds good. So, does anyone have a strong feeling about the liquor license renewals on this list as presented? If so, make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the following, the submitted liquor licenses.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
You turn me
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on the liquor license renewals? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
over.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. All right, so we're going to move right along. So 2023 budget and levy. So just as I do a usual description for the record that we do, the council met for a couple of hours before this meeting to discuss budgetary numbers for 2023 in order to have an informed discussion about the preliminary levy, which we are looking to set tonight. This preliminary levy is the maximum amount that the city can levy in property taxes through the year of 2023. It can, however, be lowered. So through the discussions that we had going through all the departments of the city, we have reached a number that is slightly different from the resolution as presented in the packet, which is Resolution 2022-16. The resolution that we have is to reflect a total levy of $1,079,000 and change.
We'll put it up on the screen for everybody to
There
look
we go,
at.
which reflects a preliminary levy increase of 5.91%. So that is, you want to put that up?
We're going to look at two spreadsheets very briefly. We won't go into detail about them, you already have. But this will make them available for the public to see. And also, if the public has any questions about these spreadsheets, they're available for their review.
There you go.
So here are the pieces that go into determining how much of our levy, or how much of our budget is going to be levy supported. And you can see the year-to-year changes in expenses, and then the last column is the budgeted revenues. So the biggest piece of this budgeted revenues that is affecting our levy right now is we've got $1.5 million budgeted for rec park revenues for next year, which we're expecting to beat this year, and hoping that we are also able to do that again next year. All the rest of those line items, we have detailed spreadsheets that you've all had a chance to look at, and that, again, if the public wants to look at or has any questions about, we'd be happy to answer them. This turns into, as you had already said, a property tax levy of $1,079,036.27, made up of, here are the elements that end up on the resolution: 781,096.07, and then these other items which are already on the resolution, for a grand total, which is different than the one on the resolution, but is the one we will be asking you to pass tonight. And it's 5.91% higher than the 2022 levy. After you pass your preliminary levy resolution, we continue the process of developing the budget for the rest of the year. We'll be working with the utility departments during October and November to set their budgets and set rates for next year. And we'll be continuing the conversation about the pieces that go into this budget, with the goal of, in December, you pass your final levy. And I think we all agree that 5.91 is a fair place to start, but it's not necessarily where you want to end. So we're going to keep working on that number.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Key stuff.
Yes. So, that is the discussion of the preliminary levy. Any further discussion on the levy and/or the resolution as it's presented, well, as it's been modified? Not presented, modified.
I'd make a resolution to approve, or I'd make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-16 as amended.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. I was just about to speak. So
Oh.
you just beat me to it by a second. No, it's cool. Motion and a second. Any further discussion on it? Just for the record on this, there were a lot of moving parts in the budget for this year. A lot of anticipatory movements made in regards to inflation and to increasing expected expenses, capital outlays, etc., that the city is looking to face. So there will be a lot more work done on this budget, and we're hoping to see this number drop more as well. So that's a little bit of background on that.
And once again, are lucky to have, our two great revenue generators that
Mhm.
come through again.
Mm-hmm.
Very healthy.
That makes a huge difference for us.
Sure does.
Sure does. All right. So, any further discussion on the resolution 2022-16? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? The preliminary levy passes 5.9%, 5.91%. So that will be published, and then we will do more work on that, and then usually, as per the schedule, that'll be one of the things we approve at our last meeting of the year, and that will then become final at that point. Once we have more accurate information for 2022 performances, we'll be able to revise and get more accurate for 2023. Great. So then moving right along, council and staff reports. Greg, you got anything?
Yeah, PUC met, and we approved a couple of purchases for the PUC, some equipment that the line guys need, some locating equipment. I didn't bring my sheet with me. I don't know exactly what.
One was an infrared camera.
One is an infrared camera, the other is a line.
The other one is a piece of equipment that helps us locate faults in underground lines.
Yep. An infrared camera is used to locate heat, things that are overheating, that are running hot, transformers, etc., to try to eliminate or to head off future breakdowns and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, it's our most effective way of doing a condition assessment on hanging electric stuff.
Cool.
And that's about it, I guess. Where Tom was there, we talked a little bit about the wastewater treatment facility. Like, we have 2 vacancies over there yet. So we're hoping to maybe get somebody hired for that. Tom does retire at the end of next week. So hopefully we have somebody to step up, apply for those jobs.
Has that been advertised?
Yeah.
Nah, we didn't.
Well, I figured, but I haven't heard anything about it.
No, it's been out there for 8, 6, 7, 8
Well,
years.
do you look on Minnesota Rural Waters?
I don't,
Yeah,
not daily.
League of Minnesota Cities.
Okay.
We have not received very much interest in Tom's job. We'll be placing Neil in at least as an interim. He's our remaining, and he has the licenses to give it a try. And really, our big challenge is even he can't do it himself, right? He needs a crew. We're starting to get some candidates for that job, and we need at least 2 of them. And there aren't a lot of candidates that have experience, but there's some that are intriguing. So I'm feeling better about that than I was. And in the meantime, we have contingencies in place to make sure that we can operate the plants. We have other staff that are going to help out everywhere that they need to. That's not a long-term strategy, but it'll definitely get us by in the short term.
Do we need to broaden our posting?
Well, for instance, we have a candidate who has some very moderate experience in wastewater outside stuff, but they don't live here, and their availability is dependent upon finding housing.
Sure.
So broadening outside of the community for that job isn't necessarily going to help us find a candidate because they're going to all face that same challenge. Internally in the community is where we've had our best success hiring for that job, but it's different this time than it's been even 2 years ago. I'm not sure. I mean, we can all imagine what the factors are that go into why it's different, but I'm not sure how to respond to it yet. But like I said, we're starting to get some candidates, and some of them are intriguing, so hoping to fill those jobs quick.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else?
Yeah, we had a park board meeting, but pretty much just basic, talked about we're having the dedication on the 15th of the new boat launch. That'll be, I believe, 2 o'clock.
Yep.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow at 2.
Tomorrow at 2, and if it's raining, it'll be under the pavilion down there, so anybody's welcome to come and view that if they'd like. We did get resurfacing done of the blacktop down at the park. That's completed now. We had two areas resurfaced, so that's completed. Let's see what else was on the agenda. That was about it. We talked about the numbers, and we had a pretty strong summer, and it looks like we had a good August, and September's still busy, so I think our numbers at the park are going to be pretty good. It was a good summer for camping and traveling. Even though gas prices were high, we seemed to hold our own with business, which is kind of nice.
Even though it was chilly, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, so anyway, I think hopefully we finish out September with some decent weather, even though we're going to get some rain now, but we do need the rain a little bit anyway, so. That's about all I have.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anton?
Yeah, I had a couple meetings. We talked about the planning commission, at least most of what was at least passed out of that. We did have another, was that a variance?
Conditional use.
That was a conditional use too. So we had a conditional use permit. Can I talk about that?
Yeah,
I can talk about it, right?
absolutely.
Fill everybody in. I don't know if you saw any of that, but there was a conditional use permit application for the zip line property. And it was an interesting discussion, but the gist of where we left it, and hopefully that we can get him back for the next meeting, we'll have some information, because they're seeking development of a 15-unit, basically hotel, up on the zipline property. And so there's issues of, besides the zoning change that would have to happen, or the conditional use permit that would have to be granted, there's no access to city sewer and water up there. So, Seth, with the LED strip conditional use permit, had about 6 times as many pictures to look at than that project up there. So we needed, a little bit more. There was a couple folks from the community that had got notices. The 2 that got notices both showed up.
They did.
Yep. And asked good questions.
Yes.
So I'm interested to see what they come back with, really. So that might be something to watch.
So that's them having to put in all their septic.
No, there's no room for a septic. So that's part of the issue. So they talked about, they referenced the composting toilets up at the Summit Chalet at Lutz and Mountains as a solution, but there wasn't a plan to, if it was like a centralized bathhouse, or we were assuming that there would be 15 of these, right, in each unit. There's also the little, the plans that we got were basically half of an 8.5 by 11, and it was just an aerial shot of not the whole property, of just the small piece where the development, where it's been blasted off and flattened out. And so, there's pools, there was no elevations at all, it was just a bunch, I think it's basically made out of shipping containers,
Yeah.
is what the plan is. But it's really hard you couldn't tell what was a building, what was a deck, what was a patio, because there was no, and they didn't want to put a whole bunch of money into something that they didn't know was gonna get through, and we said it wasn't gonna get through unless you put a little bit more money into it, so we actually understood what we were being asked to approve. So, anyway, it was good. I don't think it was a negative conversation.
I thought it was useful to the proposer as well as us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that we were specific about more information that you wanted, and hopefully he'll be able to provide it so you can have a good conversation at your next meeting.
Yeah.
But septic would be the biggest, electric wouldn't be a problem.
Well, so
They were talking about having solar and
Oh.
on-site everything, no utilities provided by the city.
Oh, okay. Also,
all solar, composting toilets, gray water system for all the piped water, like showers and sinks, which, I don't know, that's, in the county, you can't have pressurized water in a gray water system. It doesn't fly through MPCA standards but I'm sure that there's systems out there, but we were like, well, what are those systems?
Yeah.
And is it one giant system? Is there 15 small systems? How,
Yeah.
it's just a lot of, it was very,
so you can call it a hotel, but it's sort of like that? Well,
They called it a small resort.
A resort,
is what it was.
yeah.
Boutique
It was
resort.
actually called.
Just 15 cabins.
yeah.
Cabins, but when you think of resort, sometimes you think of amenities.
Yeah. There are swimming pools. Yeah.
That a swimming pool?
Like
in it?
each multiple units.
A
had
few of the
some-
cabins had swimming
had their
pools.
own private swimming pool.
Like a little one?
It was hard to tell.
It's hard
It's
to
hard
tell.
to tell.
Like how big are we talking here?
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
like-
Well, I don't know, but they were part of the gray water system,
Yeah.
Sure.
which apparently there was an elaborate filtration that allows these pools to be fed with the gray water system.
So that's what would,
I've seen those natural swimming pools before.
yeah, those actually take up a lot of space. This is different than that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So this is
Interesting.
like, I don't know,
We think it is.
We think it is.
We need more information.
Yeah. I mean, they were boxes, which, there's companies that make swimming pools that you can plop in the ground that are old shipping containers, right? Cut in half, cut the top off them, and they're a swimming pool, which, based on what he had drawn, it kind of looked like that. They were square. They certainly weren't like the natural pool idea of wetland filtration that, is the same size as what the swimming area is.
Yeah.
At least not in the non-scaled, very.
I didn't get the sense that was this at all.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was interesting. And then EDA, I had EDA last night. Couple things there. There's 2 more lot sales happened up there. There's not very many lots left. There is
Who bought land?
Fika Coffee.
Oh, cool.
And there was a lot that back pre language change, ordinance change to the owner occupied, employee occupied housing. There was a party that had said they were going to buy 2 lots, but there had been no earnest money, it was just like holding out there. So they were finally approached, I don't know if the language is through, to say like, do you still want these? And they ended up changing from 2 down to 1, but they did follow through on that.
Oh.
And did they come and talk to you?
No.
So that was the question. I was not at the previous EDA meeting, but when they were at that meeting, they had asked if they could do their residence before they did their commercial use, which was in the minutes, which is where I saw that. And I
If
said-
they do ask, the answer will be no.
And I said, no, just so
Yeah.
you know. So I said, so everybody here knows, no, that's not how it works.
Cool.
But they're still okay about the property.
Yeah, and I said that, I was like, well, we just approved it, so hopefully they're fine with it. But we gave some business development funds money to, oh shoot, I wish I have the pamphlet in my car, their folder, to Sarah Hamilton, who's been bringing folks from Pine Ridge here, providing housing and jobs to help fill the employment gap. And it's been successful. I had all the numbers for that. It just kind of ekes its way out. And so there was $30,000 of business development funds from the EDA that went to support that project ongoing and expanding that for the future, which is, I think, fantastic. We had I think that's the big one. Well, looks like Superior National is going to hit 14,000 rounds, which is what our budgeted rounds were for the year. So that's pretty awesome, because it's nice to have that in good shape compared to how it had been for quite some time. Then Monday, I'm on the VRBO advisory panel. Is that what it's called?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Vacation rental, yeah, whatever.
Vacation rental advisory committee. And it really is just trying to wrap up, fee structures, enforcements. It's pretty interesting. I don't know the numbers because I did it via Zoom and made notes, but I didn't bring those notes with me. But I think when the meetings first started, they had said there was something like 230 in the county. And
That had acquired their licenses.
that had acquired their licenses.
Yes.
And now, which has only been a couple months, and through refining, so they figured there was some of that there was double counts because of resorts, because there's just them cleaning up their math and finding some other ones. There's actually like 268 or something. And they said that they're like processing like 2 a week, or at least getting applications for averaging about 2 a week.
So attention came to the issue and then people decided they needed to do their.
Yeah, or it might have just
Probably,
been,
yeah.
It's been really interesting. I mean, Brady's been there, Bob's been there, assessor, and it's been an interesting conversation. So even looking at like people that don't have it, or like after the fact, like, well, if the fee is only this much, which they said Cook County is lowest in almost any county in the state for what they charge for their yearly fee, if you ran one and they found out that like you'd been doing it for a couple years, your like penalty is actually cheaper than if you'd have bought 2 years worth of, so there was interesting dynamic in what that would cost. And then also changing that fee structure to increase, I think it's like $200 right now, but increasing it to like $400, because at $400 with that count that they have, that could fulfill a position. Because right now it's Joseph Ruth, who's also does other things for
Yeah,
planning, or
quite a few.
planning, yeah, quite a few things. So, and he's been tasked with that, so it would allow then the actual position to come on, whether they were full-time doing that or it was a part-time position, and they could help out in land services elsewhere. Anyway, yeah, it's been interesting.
So is 400 more the average, or what other counties charge?
I think it is closer, but it still is not,
Are they looking to get to the state if there is an average?
They
or
sent,
whatever?
yeah, so Tim has sent out another like round of surveys to different counties throughout the state to kind of take everything, like from every meeting that we do, he takes and kind of creates a survey to send out to these other counties that are dealing with the same thing and get their feedback and their information, and then presents that, and so it's been dynamic, I guess.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's I think been interesting. And I think we've got to wrap that up pretty quick, like in 2 weeks or something.
Yeah,
In
I think
August.
maybe you get one more meeting and that's it.
Yeah, so we're gonna, I think, we're gonna try and get that wrapped up. That's all I got,
Cool. Thank
which was a
you.
lot, sorry.
No, don't have to
it's
apologize. It's
Really
good stuff.
interesting.
Mhm.
Tracy?
We talked about this earlier, but I think we should talk about this now in the meeting, just to make sure everyone is aware. I was at the downtown business meeting yesterday, and it came up again. And that's the whole issue with the Highway 61 trees and bushes and grass situation, where things are at. I've been approached on the street by various people. It was a topic yesterday in that meeting. I think we should just give an update of how we're handling it and where it's at, so everyone knows.
Point at Mike.
I must be I can do this.
Sorry.
You can do
That's
this.
not a
You-
problem.
You have the
Summarize
most,
what
you have the
said
most.
earlier.
I'd be happy to just say what we've done in the office. We have been in communication with MnDOT all year about it, because first off, we were just curious as to how those items were going to be closed out. But then later on, as there were clear maintenance issues, we were much more curious about who was going to be dealing with it. The landscaping has a 2-year warranty, and so MnDOT is still working through the contractors to deal with warranty issues on all the landscaping, including the trees and bushes and planting areas. And we've told MnDOT that we want them to come up here and inspect the site, and we want to be there with them so that we can make sure they see everything that we see every day and know exactly what's going on with the landscaping. And as of yet, they haven't been able to do that, and they've indicated some difficulty working with the subcontractors. It's really frustrating for everybody, and absolutely not acceptable, and we're going to continue to work with MnDOT until they find a way to improve the situation.
So in a sense, because they're still on warranty, it really is their responsibility.
We don't really, we can't take over the maintenance of these items without messing up their entire contractual relationship with the folks that still have an obligation to make this right. So there will be a time when we will get to step in and just be the sole owners and maintainers of these items. But it's not yet, and it won't be next year either necessarily. So it's very frustrating.
And at some point, though, they just have to, a tree that died, they need to replace it.
That's right.
Sure.
And then if it hits after that 2-year mark, then it's us to do our best to make sure that it survives. But
Correct.
Yeah.
it's not just like the word maintenance, but it's also make good. I mean, it was a tough year to put things, especially grass. It's like, really, why did we bother almost last year? But
Yeah, and I think it's reasonable to expect not everything's going to survive in a project like that. Certainly not in the short term, certainly not in the long term, but this is not a good place for it to be right now.
The other topic that came up in the downtown meeting yesterday kind of relates to that, and Dave was there. They need to redo, and money's being spent already or budgeted to redo the Christmas decorations on all the lights and whatever, and then
Okay.
how to handle the tree downtown in the parks and all the other lighting and all that they do, and then the help that the electric group with their equipment do to help get that up and running. And then some of the, when the business owners kind of talked it through, and it wasn't a large group, but they did say we'd like to keep that as broad across the whole downtown area, not try to centralize it. The
As far as
decorating
decorations?
and
Okay.
just setting that feel of the holidays, right?
Agreed.
And also get up along this new corridor, well, new in the sense all redone on 61 as well. So some of those businesses also get included. We've always focused down more this way. And that, of course, would mean new pieces. And not to get in the weeds about it, but we did bring up, it's like different lighting up there as far as what you attach and how you can attach. And there's those nice planters, and they have electric in them. Maybe you can just buy something different that just sits in there. There's
Yeah.
just possibilities.
Mhm.
It's like those light nets that you can just like.
Light nets, or
Inflatable
maybe you
snowman.
get a couple cute deer. I don't know what. Yeah, all we need is one of those air things
Those
to
blowing guys.
blow, yeah, into the harbor. But anyways, that was a topic, and how do we handle it, and money and the whole deal. But it sounds like a really nice idea to kind of broaden that out, and what can we do?
Cool.
So.
I like it.
Mhm.
All right, so I had a committee meeting for the post board this past week. That was namely an appeals meeting. So one of the jobs that the post board has is to look at complaints that have been issued against officers, and then those officers have an ability to appeal those things. And so we don't often get appeals, because most of the time when officers get caught doing stuff, then they know they did something wrong, and then they know that it's best for them to just go through the process and take the punishments that are handed down, and then move on. And so that was a very interesting process to take part in. Hadn't had to do that yet in my time in service there, so that was very interesting. I've had I'll be attending the dedication ceremonies for the different various projects, Highway 61 and the boat launch. And then coming also in November, there will be another dedication ceremony for the Passion Pit project out there, for the transfer of ownership for that back to the tribe, which I think is going to be super cool. I've had tons of conversations with residents and guests of the community in the past couple of weeks regarding how things in the city are run, and I don't know if that's just because I didn't put my name in for re-election. Now everybody wants to talk to me or what, but it just seemed really strange. It seemed notable to me that it was different. And then I've been directing a couple of developers of small homes and other housing solutions to the EDA. I don't know if
For
it
the
doesn't sound
HR, you
like
mean?
to the EDA and the HRA. Some are looking for funding, some are looking for just information regarding how that all works in town here. And so I've been having a lot of conversations with them about the zoning ordinance and how we removed limitations in that in the last couple of years, and hopefully some of those will come to fruition.
Are
So
those
that-
local contractors or interest? I'm just curious, interest
Oh,
from
I
outside
would
the
say
area?
regional. Yeah.
Regional?
So like one of them I know is based out of Duluth, and they specifically do, like, I wouldn't say tiny home, I would say small home developments. As far as developments, like not just single units, like multiple units. And then another is multifamily developer that was curious what opportunities existed in Grand Marais. And so I sent them that way because I was like, I don't know, we gotta talk to these guys. They're the
Yeah.
ones that have the answers. So hopefully some of those people will show up on an agenda for the HRA or the EPA pretty soon. So that's what I have. Anyone else? You guys?
We're good.
All right. Well, in that case, thank you all very much for a long afternoon of work, and we are adjourned.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.